Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick, and it's time for this week's matchups episode. First, we're going to be talking about the defense, and join me as always for these episodes is my friend Frazer Tapar. Frazer, how you doing?
Doing good, Ken. Glad to be back on for a more better outlook on a game this Thursday night against the Miami Dolphins. Ravens got a big win against Chicago, well-needed win. Let's see if we can turn the tide and use that as momentum and have more of a snowball effect the opposite way.
Yeah, should be some snowball factors coming back into this game, most notably with Lamar Jackson returning, and hopefully that fixes some things. I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the offensive side. But let's start with the defense. And I saw the top one on your list. I think it's an excellent one.
Yep. First matchup I have this week is the Ravens pass rush versus the Dolphins offensive line. Um, it's been better. I think we had the big sack by Mike Green in the first quarter, which was a really big sack. That's one of the sacks that we need our big time pass rushers to make on a high leverage down, third and goal, especially. So seeing that is exciting. We saw more pressure up the middle in terms of blitzes, but let's see if we could generate more four-man pass rush against an offensive line that, quite frankly, isn't helping out Tua's case for potentially keeping his job in Miami and also Mike McDaniel. Um, they have tackles that are below average in total of their offensive total, but they have Larry Brown, who has a 59.8 or 59.1 pass blocking grade. Looking for some of our better pass rushers like Van Noy or Mike Green to exploit him and really cause havoc for Tua because he's not really able to see over the offensive line, and also he's not one of those guys that's going to be able to stay down the field with a receiver if he's getting pressure from the outside where he has to make a decision to roll out or get down and take the sack.
Tua certainly is capable of more than a few errors if you encourage him to do so. He's had 10 interceptions this year for starters. So I'm going to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about Tua and the inside linebackers a little bit later. So I want to save some of this, but you're right on the money about him not really being able to see over traffic. He's a good guy to keep in the pocket. Honestly, not a particularly dangerous runner at this point in his career. He's run for 3.5 yards per carry. A lot of teams think of him as a really dangerous mobile quarterback, but he's really not anymore. That's not who he is. So he's a guy who wants to stay in the pocket. He definitely wants to throw the ball as opposed to run it. And particularly on the interior, Miami has a lot of weakness on that offensive line. Jonah Sava Inea has been terrible at. I think he's playing left guard, and Cole Strange has been also awful. He was a former center when he was with the Patriots. He's at guard now. And then Aaron Brewer has been at center. He's probably been their best overall lineman, but not a particularly great pass blocker. And if you look at what he does, he's more of a plus run blocker that they get, and really their only guy who is good in that way. But the Ravens interior, the one-on-one matchups they get with nose tackle on guard, they've
Yep.
got to really exploit those matchups. I think those got to be walk back pressures with some degree of frequency, and it might be Okoye, it might be Jones on a three tech against a guard, it might be Jenkins
People's,
left on a guard or a center straight up.
yeah, or you can see Peoples with a nice finesse move getting right through the tackle. I
Yeah,
mean, right through the guard with no issue. He's shown that as well. So I'm expecting some really a lot of juice from the pass rush, especially after a performance like we saw Sunday against the Chicago Bears. I mean, it's an encouraging performance in general for the team's morale. So going into this Thursday, I mean, the vibes are going to be high. I think Mike Green might potentially get two sacks this game if he's able to exploit some of the weaknesses they have on the outside and maybe some of the stunts that he can get opportunities when Travis Jones gets on the under and he goes on the over and potentially can get something up the middle.
that's a good point. That the Ravens have good opportunities to blast those A gaps
Yep.
with stunts and blitzes, and they are very weak there.
Yep.
They have lots of problems getting their act together and pass blocking in the middle. I'm going to move on. we'll talk about Wiggins versus Waddle. I think that's one of the really big matchups in this game. We've seen a couple of games recently where certainly we've seen it with Jamar Chase, whether whoever he's been playing with, it's been with Joe Flacco at times, has developed just, a kind of a pitch and catch rhythm. We've seen it with other quarterbacks across the league. A Tua to Waddle rhythm cannot develop in this game. And Waddle is their dangerous remaining weapon. Tyreek Hill out for
Yep.
not with a significant injury. I don't know if he's lost for the season. I think he
Oh
is.
no, I'm pretty sure it's significant. His leg was dangling
Okay, you're right.
during that injury.
He is. He's lost for the season. I remember reading it.
Yep.
But anyway, in terms of Waddle's certainly a fast and good route runner, but Wiggins is the guy who can be sticky with him. And if he's sticky, Tua can be a little bit reluctant to throw, and he can throw some balls that are thrown into danger. Either one. It's not an ideal matchup in the slot for the Ravens. Now, the Ravens don't really have a slot corner that they play there. They'll go to Humphrey there when it's in a dime situation, but they won't have a really fast slot corner. It'll be with physicality that they try and get on Waddle in a slot. But if they want speed, it's really got to be Wiggins chasing him from outside to outside, and I think that's what the Ravens will try and do in this game. With Hill and Waller are both out right now on IR. The targets are being focused to Waddle more than they have in typical situations. They've also been going to Devon Achane a fair amount, and he'd be another guy that they need to be very careful of. That's obviously the inside linebackers that'll be primarily responsible for that, and the short zone defenders. Hamilton on the larger side of the field, I think we'll take care of some of the screen game. I know you probably want to talk about that a little bit but a little bit later. But Waddle, particularly when he's used as the X receiver, Miami is committing space budget to him when they do that. So they're trying to make use of his route running skills and his ability to get the ball out quickly to him. That's where Wiggins has really got to win this matchup. And I think you probably put safety help, given how little else the Dolphins really present to the Ravens. I think you probably put safety help on that side, almost like a 2-on-1. What the Ravens did to Randy Moss in that 2009 playoff game was they just layered him with Ed Reed for the vast majority of plays, and that worked very effectively. The Dolphins they don't have a bunch of threats. I mean, a lot of their receiving threats with Waller and Hill out are now sidelined. So anyway, that's one of my big matchups.
Yep, and I want to go back to the point where if Nate Wiggins is going to follow Waddle, I think we need to, like you said, emphasize physicality. Play that I point out from the game this past week was on the goal line or near the goal line. Odunze ran an underneath route, and Roquan blew him up and let Wiggins catch up a little bit so he could be more sticky in coverage. Granted, it was completed for, I think it was a first down, but still, like, that kind of disruptive nature in the timing of the offense can really be the difference between, yeah, a little 5-yard gain, but if Roquan doesn't hit Odunze, he's scot-free and probably able to run through the end zone at that point.
Right.
So I think continuing to be emphasizing the physicality with these receivers who have speed is going to be good, because I think everywhere else we probably could match up relatively well.
If I'm remembering the play properly, that was a pass towards the right sideline on
Yep.
3rd and 6. It was a conversion, right? And then they kept him out of the end zone. That 3 plays later, they got Green sacked to end that drive. So, Roquan's play there kind of gets forgotten.
Yep.
Not
Forgot by me, because that's big time.
There you go.
All right. So moving on to my next point, I have the Ravens defense, probably most likely big nickel in our blitz looks versus the Miami short game and the screen game. Uh, Tua, like we mentioned earlier, Tua is not the guy to look downfield most of the time, because as he's revealed, he can't see down the field most of the time. So he has to check it down, or they have to run these design screens where they could show jailbreak one side, come back with a slip screen the other side to the tight end. Um, Mike McDaniels is very creative with how he can approach and attack a defense that likes to show blitz all the time. I expect to see a lot of batted balls. Kyle Van Noy is going to be a very savvy veteran in this situation. I doubt they're going to try and run anything his way. They'll probably try and go towards Mike Green, who's a little, no pun intended, green
Mhm.
in the NFL. So it's going to be like Tavius Robinson in this situation. I don't think Miami's going to have anywhere to breathe if he would be in this game. But given the fact that Mike Green is relatively young, it's going to be easier for them to get to their plays. But once the Ravens get back into their flow of understanding what they're going to do, just like they did against Miami in 2023, it was touch and go there for the first quarter and a half. And then once Roquan got that interception, I think that's when the defense settled in and really keyed in on exactly what Miami is going to be doing every single play.
Yeah, that was a one-sided brutal massacre in the second half, but it's still a ball game near the end of the third quarter, which was pretty strange, particularly I think in part because of what the Ravens had happened to them from Miami in 22.
Right.
That they given up a big comeback loss, but the 23 game ended up being a enormous one-sided blowout of what was a pretty good football team at that time. I'm in agreement with you on the short game there. He does read hot, and part of what the Ravens need to do is take that away. They have a couple weapons to do that. Kyle Hamilton's size is extremely good at taking away short throws to the strong sides. That's a lot of what they'll do, and I do think they'll stick with big nickel this week as their primary version of nickel. I'm not going to say they'll do it necessarily every single play, but I still think it'll be their primary version. It's where they can deploy their personnel best. It's just where they can get the best 11 men on in the best situations is with doing that. Anyway, his size, he almost deflected a ball this past week where he was in the backfield on a little swing pass to the left side. If he gets a piece of that might have gone to the house.
Yeah.
Certainly it could have been a PD, but it could have gone to the house as well if he'd have tipped it up.
I believe it. So yeah, like I said, that big nickel I think is our bread and butter right now. That's our base defense, and having Kyle Hamilton in the box is it's done numbers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's night and day what the defense looks like. What's the new safety's name in the back end?
Alohi Gilman.
Gilman. Gilman has been filling in well. I mean, his run fits have been good. He's coming up downhill, physical when he needs to. Um, Starks has been attacked in coverage a little bit, but he's not giving up the big play. So I think him not keeping the lid on the defense, I think he's doing his job.
All right. Well, I'm a little disappointed with Starks, honestly, so far to date, but and
Fair.
probably more disappointed because of how well Emin is playing right now. When you're talking about that 1-for-1 draft
Right.
decision the Ravens make, but in truth, I don't think Starks is really playing very well. I know there's going to be a lot of people who say, "Oh no, you can't compare the two. They don't play the same position." I mean, basically, the Ravens have the personnel right now to move people around and make use of all three of those guys at a very high level, meaning all three of Gilman, Hamilton, and Manwari, or Starks, Gilman, Hamilton, either one. And they happen to choose the one that honestly has less value. And that's really unfortunate at this point, but it is what it is. He looks unbelievably good right now. He's the Bo Jackson of the position in terms of what he brings to it.
Fair.
All right, let me move on. My last matchups is the inside linebackers versus Tua. Not a dangerous runner, as I mentioned. 38 yards on 11 carries this season. He hasn't forced a missed tackle. His long run is 8 yards. And here's the kicker: he's fumbled the ball 6 times. So that's been a problem when he's been in there, and they have a big pass blocking issue on this team. Tackles are okay. The inside is terrible. And if the Ravens can get pressure and can knock a ball free, that'll really improve their chance to win this game, obviously. Roquan and Buchanan, I think, especially on early downs, because they'll be the guys in there when we're in our standard, I can't say standard, our big nickel package. Then those two guys will really need to be containing Tua effectively with a combination of blitz and spy action. But Tua does get uncomfortable in the pocket as time rolls forward in the pocket. He does have a clock, and he gets uncomfortable with what's happening. He's not like Tyler Huntley, where Tyler Huntley, I feel like, could stand back there for 6 seconds and doesn't really have an awareness of time in the pocket.
Right.
And doesn't move around as you would hope he would, and to respect the clock at that point. But Tua, really wants to get rid of the ball. quickly. And as time moves forward, he gets progressively antsy in that pocket. We'll see Roquan and Simpson, who I expect will be deployed as a roving pass rush asset. Okay, to go back to this last game, they deployed Simpson in the dime package exclusively. And as not a traditional weak side linebacker, that's where Hamilton was playing as the dime back when Simpson was in, but as a roving asset at the line. So he lined up all over, a fair amount of simulated pressure looks, where he lined up standing on the inside or standing on the edge outside an outside linebacker. I know there was talk that Simpson was going to play somehow as an edge defender. That really can't ever happen in a traditional sense. He's the wrong size entirely for that. Malik Harrison was big enough last year at 259 to put his hand in the dirt and be an edge setter on early downs, or stand and be an edge setter on early downs. But that's not who Simpson is. Simpson, he gives you a little something. This kind of reminds me of what they did with Ray Lewis in 2000. They played what effectively was a quarter defense, didn't have any linebackers, not a true linebackers, and it had a 3-1 dime nominally, but Ray Lewis was the fourth guy, and he would rove around the line of scrimmage and just look for a place to rush the passer on third down. He didn't drop into coverage very much on those plays at all. And they do, this is something I think they're deciding they want to use Simpson for this year. Roquan has been a multi-use asset, obviously, since he got back. And I don't know about you, but the play of Roquan gives me tremendous hope for the second half. The play of Roquan in this last game.
Yeah, and I think the main thing for him is continuing to show that consistency with that play, because we saw it against Cleveland
Browns, yeah.
where he popped off the screen there, and then this game coming back, I mean, he's super fresh. I mean, he hasn't played in 2.5, 2, 3 weeks with the bye. So I mean, we expect the pop from Roquan. Now let's see if we can continue it and really will this defense and be the leader that we expect him to be on this middle linebacker.
Yeah, I think it's a great combination to have him and Hamilton. I didn't even notice who had the green dot this last week. I presume it was Roquan. They're both on the field for every play. Either one
Yeah,
of them could have done it, but Hamilton being the leader of the secondary and Roquan being the leader of the defense is very much the relationship that Reed and Lewis had. It was a wonderful symbiotic kind of relationship that they had for many years. So anyway. The last thing about Tua, I mentioned earlier, he already has 10 interceptions this year. He does have 15 touchdown passes too, but the 10 interceptions is an indication, along with the 6 fumbles, he's going to give the Ravens some chances in this ball game. If this ends up being a 0 or even a 1 takeaway game for the Ravens, I think that leaves Miami in a position to win. The Ravens are a big favorite. You wouldn't normally, make a declarative statement that would go with a modest turnover total even, but I think that'll leave the Dolphins in a position to win if they don't find a way to get 2 turnovers. Now, some of that is not causal in nature. I'm not saying turnovers cause wins here. I'm really saying wins cause turnovers in part of this way, that the Ravens, need to get their offense rolling. They need to get a big lead. They need to generate situations where turnovers can be created. And that'll be hopefully something that occurs. Anyway, if we see, if you miss the game entirely, wake up and read the game book only, and the Ravens only got one takeaway in it, I think it's a pretty bad thing.
Yep, and I think, like you said, Tua will give us our chances. Really starts with the pressure in the pocket, make him look frantic, make him stop looking downfield, and then, like you said, I mean, he's not real strong with the ball in his hand. So let's see if we can get a couple.
I want to go back to one thing you said earlier, because it's a point I want to make on your pass rush point.
Sure.
Is that this is a place that the Ravens didn't use a lot of scheme this last week. They hardly stunted at all, which means really Orr turned off the stunts on the sideline and just had his own design stunts that he's putting in. They did blitz a fair amount, and they used a fair amount of simulated pressure. I am expecting still some of that, given the fact that Ravens don't have big pass rush assets, but this could be the game Carl Lawson is in there to get a few snaps as well.
Fair, because I mean, we did acquire him last week. Let's see if he's in game shape at that point, and last week, right? So I mean, it's 1 full week because it'd be Thursday night game.
Yep.
So let's see if we can get him for a couple reps, and then especially if it's a blowout game, then that'd be nice.
I'm not saying that he even has to be the guy, but I will say this. I don't want the Ravens going into this game with 3 outside linebackers. You don't want to create a means by which Miami can win the ball game. So you don't want to create your own tripwire to then, have an injury take you out of the ball game because you didn't prepare with the right personnel. So I really want to see them have 9 guys for the front 5, and they played with 8, I believe, each of the last 2 games. They had 4-4, and then they had 5-3 this last week. So if they go with 8 again, I'll be upset about it. Either way, they might do it. If they went with 4-4, or if they went with 5-3, I'd be upset either way.
Yeah, the inactive list is going to get tough
Yep.
here pretty soon. I mean, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Not really a bad thing, but it's going to be a tough decision for the personnel department and the coaching staff, really, who to deploy and who not to deploy. I'm just glad Keaton Mitchell's on the good side of that right
It
now.
appears to be. The
Yeah,
Ravens published that thing where they're showing what uniforms the Ravens would wear, and they put Keaton Mitchell in a white uniform. I'm going to say, if you go back on that and you don't activate Keaton Mitchell after you dangle that piece of meat in front of your fans,
yeah,
man, all I
something
can say is
else.
we are a group of ravenous hyenas in terms of our desire to have Keaton Mitchell on that field.
100%.
All right. Well, Frazer, always a pleasure doing this show with you. Tell folks where they can find you online.
You guys can find me at Twitter/X at F_Rave8. That's F_RAVE8.
All right, folks. Thanks as always for listening. If you've got time, write us a 50-word 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that on your favorite podcast platform. If not, just like and subscribe if this is the kind of material you'd like to see and you're watching on YouTube. Thanks again for watching. For Frazer Tafar, this is Ken McKusick, and we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.